Kal Kadosh, Boker Or, I wanted to share with you a beautiful idea on this week's parasha. It has to do with the concept of hashkafa, hashkifa. Hashkafa, hashkifa means to look. And it says in the pasuk as follows, Vayakumu misham hanashim. They got up from there. Vayashkifu al pene Sedom, and they looked upon Sedom. And Abraham was going with them to send them. What does that mean? Rashi says that the word ashkifa, shkafa, is gazing, is something negative. Right? The people or the objects that are gazed upon are going to be affected negatively. But there's going to be one exception to the rule. And the one exception to the rule is going to be in Parashat Kitavo, where it says there, Ashkifa mimeon kodshecha, uverechat merecha Yisrael. You're going to look from high above, from your place, and you're going to bless the nation of Israel. Now, Rashi says that giving gifts to the poor is so great that it turns the divine wrath into mercy, meaning it changes midat adin to midat rachamim. Now, the question is, why does Rashi have to tell us exception to the rule here? So usually I would tell you, listen, you're going to tell you that anytime that it's written the word vayashkef, right, or vayashkifu, it's negative. That's it. And then in Parashat Kitavo, you're going to get there, and now you're going to say, 1 second, it says over there that he wants to bless the nation Israel. It says vayashkifu. Something's wrong over there. Hashkifa mimon kodshecha. So there you're going to tell me, by the way, there's an exception to the rule. Rashi doesn't do that. Rashi tells you the exception to the rule here. Now, why does he mention it over here? It should have been more appropriate to mention it over there. Another question is, why does it say Vayakumu misham? They got up from there. What is it from there? Well, obviously from there. From where? So Rashi comes and he says something interesting. And listen to this. There's 3 men who appeared to Avraham Avinu in the beginning of the parasha. These 3 men were angels, but he thought there were 3 men. Who were they? Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. Michael, he had to tell Sarai Imenu she's going to have a boy. Gabriel was going to destroy Sodom. He's mitat adin. Raphael was going to heal Abraham, and later to save Lot. Now they asked, why do you need 3? Because one malach cannot do 2 different shlichuts. One malach, one messenger cannot do 2 different messengers. So each one had a different job. Now the curing Abraham and saving Lot is the same type of a job. And therefore that's why Raphael was able to do both. That he cured Abraham and he saved Lot. Now Rashi says that they were needed, right? So each angel was needed. Now based on this, the Maharal comes and he questions, 1 second, why was Gabriel needed to be present at the beginning? Why? When they come to Sodom, how many angels come to Sodom? 2. Who are the 2 angels? Gabriel and Raphael. Where did Michael go? Rashi says, Michael, he told Sarah that she was pregnant, and then he left. He didn't need to be there anymore. He did his mission. So the question is, if Gabriel's job was only to destroy Sodom, so why did he come to Avraham Avinu's house? Wait, go to Sodom, then that's where you're going to go to Sodom with Raphael, and that's it. Why from the beginning there were 3? What's going on? So Rav Cheskel Ambraski, he comes and he explains something like this, and he says like this. There was a need for Gabriel to go to the house of Avraham Avinu. He says, why? Since he knew he was going to destroy Sodom, Gabriel says, why? I don't understand. It already says in the end of Bereshit, Ki yetzer lev ha'adam ra min ne'urav, people are bad. And if human beings are bad, it's their nature. Why in the world am I going to destroy them? Why am I going to go destroy Sodom? So to go against that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu went and said, I'm sending you along, I'm tagging you along with the other 2. Why? To see the house of Avraham Avinu. Because Avraham Avinu, in essence, is no different than any other human being that's living in Sodom. But Avraham Avinu was a Muda Chesed. He was able to go above and beyond. So Gabriel comes to the house of Avraham Avinu, and he sees a human being, what he could become. And now, when he's told, go destroy Sodom, he says, I understand. Because if a human being could become like an Avraham Avinu, means every human being could become like Avraham Avinu. So therefore, you could go overturn your natural tendencies and become that. So Rav Ramsky comes and he says, that's the reason why the Pasuk says, Misham, from there. Right? Now that the Malachim observed how great a man there was from there, they recognized the contrast between him and Sodom and how low they had sunken. So they arose from there, from seeing how great the person could become. And that's why he uses the terminology of Ashkafa, which the Ashkafa now is going downwards, looking down negatively upon them. And that's why Rashi comes and he says, Ashkafa mentioned in Kitavo, in right here, Vayera. So he comes and he says like this: Hashkafa is teaching something that's important because Rashi says when you give gifts to the poor, it's so great that it overturns midat adin to midat rachamim. It turns justice, wrath, to mercy. So it means even if at the beginning we were supposed to get bad things, the fact that we gave presents to the poor, now all of a sudden HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks down upon us, and now we're not afraid for him to look down upon us. Because now, look at us, opposite, look at us, and now it's going to become mercy. So here in Parashat Vayera, Rashi is alluding to this fact. Because he says, if you're going to be charitable, kind, and compassionate, so all of a sudden HaKadosh Baruch Hu changes the justice to mercy. So for Klal Yisrael, it would have actually worked also for Sodom. But they didn't have that. So they became famous for their cruelty and their nature and inhospitality and everything else. So therefore, but they could have been like an Avraham Avinu, and if they would have been like Avraham Avinu, it would have changed everything. Okay, there's another explanation also. Why does it say right Misham? Another explanation is brought down by the Be'er Mayim, where he comes and he says as follows. He says, right, now that you experience what happened in the house of Avraham Avinu, the Melachim were not able to look at Sodom in a positive light. So when you go to Sodom immediately, they would have come and they said, what's going on here? This is a terrible place. What's going on? So it says Misham. What does it mean Misham? You have to turn away from Avraham Avinu, and now you only have to look at Sodom by themselves to give them a fair chance of salvation. What does that mean? We all have to be the levels of Avot HaKadoshim. Right? We always have to say, Matay yagiu ma'aseh le'ma'aseh avotai. It means we all have to look at upon ourselves. When are we going to reach those and aspire those levels of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and of the imahot, of the mothers and everything? Right? That's what we always have to do. But I cannot hold other people to that standard. Which means that just like the Malachim did, I cannot come and hold different people to different standards. And that's the chizuk that we're saying, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he wanted to destroy the world, he comes and he says, Eredana ve'ere. Right? What does that mean? I'm going to go down and I'm going to see. This is by Sodom. What does that mean? He's looking, he has to go down to them. So an ordinary person will not commit outright theft. He may be less than honest and violate the provision of Gnevadat, but somebody that tzaddik will never go to. But to hold a commoner like a tzaddik is also not right. So therefore you have to go down. Eredana, I'm going to go down. Avraham Avinu had to go down to their level in order to really see who they are. And that's why in Pirkei Avot we say, Al tadin et chavercha ad shetadgiya limkomo, which means you can't judge your friend until you get to your place. Now, commonly we say, you're never going to get to that place because you don't know what he's going through. So you always have to give them the benefit of the doubt because we don't know what's the person's happening or So he says, but above the concept in mind, we also understand that to judge another person, we have to go down to his place, not to our place. Because that's the only way to really judge him, and you can't. So whether it's going to be as parents, educators, doesn't matter what, when we want our children to follow in our footsteps and live up to our standards, but we always have to be on guard not to demand more than what they could give, and not to expect unreasonable. Our judge is to judge them when when we are standing in their place, misham, from them. So it's two different divrei Torah connected in one. That basically the first one was that when a person is going to come and they're going to, whenever it says the negative look, it's only negative because we were looking for the bad, right? Which means that Ashkafa is looking for the bad, but we could change that to become good. Because when we're going to be kind and compassionate to other people, HaKadosh Baruch Hu changes midat adin to midat rachamim. All of a sudden he looks at us as a good varechet amechaisa. It's going to give us beracha. But that only comes when they were able to see how great a human being was going to become. And that's why Gabriel had to go the first time around to the house of Avraham Avinu to see how great he was, to see, wow, I can't use the ta'anani, I can't use the claim anymore that human beings are all terrible. Because if not, then why you want me to kill them? But I looked at Avraham Avinu, I said, no, it's wrong. But on the other hand, though, we always have to be careful that whenever we're going to be judging, first of all, don't judge another person until you're there. And the majority of times you'll never be there. Because you can never have his shoes, you can never have everything that the person is going through. But not only that, though, it's only if you're in their shoes, it's only from there that you're able to see them. So don't expect more from one if you can't from another. Meaning sometimes that happens with children, that this children is a little bit brighter, they're more outgoing, they're more this, they're more that. So we have to pay attention to what's going on in order for them to continue growing into Torah and Shamayim, to judge them favorably always. B'ezrat Hashem. Shabbat Shalom.